Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the third episode of the In Off the Post podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Bevan, and I'm here with the usual suspects, Ross Dawson.
Hello.
And Liam Thomas.
Afternoon.
And although sounding a bit upbeat today, I think we're all a little bit depressed after last night's result. I think we need to just go and get it over and done with so we can talk about happier things.
Wash our hands of it.
Yeah, gosh. It was a hard watch last night, wasn't it, lads?
Yep, so if you somehow do not know, Wales's last World Cup qualifier, sort of the penultimate game, was against Ireland at home in the Cardiff City Stadium, and we lost 1-0, to put it bluntly.
Predicted it. It's the only
a
jury I can
goal
take
from
that.
James McLean gave Ireland the win. It was a decent finish, but it was such a poor goal to concede.
Yeah, throw out from Hennessy was just sort of
Lazy, wasn't it?
replicated that of Oblak when in the England-Slovenia match. Just you need to wait for the team to settle down after an attack. And especially Williams didn't react well either when he got the ball, quite lazy on it.
I thought Williams did have quite a poor game.
Yeah,
in defence for sure.
I felt that we set up really, really well, but we didn't have the team to do what we wanted to do. We needed to start Sam Vokes for sure.
Yeah, that was a big thing of what I was talking to you guys about when we were watching the game yesterday or last night, because we did watch the game together. The way Wales were playing in the first half especially was definitely suited for having Sam Vokes on the field. There was a lot of running down the wing and chucking in crosses, but Chris Coleman decided to start Hal Robson-Kanu and still play that tactic of football, which I thought was, quite frankly, the wrong decision, really.
I think it makes more sense to play Vokes and to bring Robson-Kanu on as opposed to playing Kanu and then bring in Vokes on, because it gets all a bit desperate when you bring Vokes on.
Wales had no height in attack in that game, especially with, obviously Bale was out with quite a serious injury, but Wales just had no height or physical presence in the final third, which I think that we sorely missed.
But if you bring Hal Robson-Kanu on in the 70th minute, he can run at tired defences, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It's quite like the Rashford effect, really.
Yeah, exactly. And it was frustrating to watch because every time, I think Hal Robson-Kanu had that header in the first half, wasn't it? I think it was in the first half.
Oh, that we thought was going to go in.
We all thought it was going in.
And the first thing I said to one of you was Sam Vokes would have scored that.
Yeah, and he fully would have, because it was exactly the same kind of header that he scored against Belgium, and it was frustrating to watch. I just felt like Ireland set up really well. They wanted to defend, almost like they wanted a draw, but they did come alive in the second half. They played much better than us in the second half.
But the tragic thing was that there were so many names missing out of that Ireland lineup. Going into the game before kick-off, and I was looking at the starting 11s, I really fancied us because we did have a better squad on paper. Like the only recognisable names on the Irish lineup were like the likes of James McLean and like Robbie Brady and stuff like that.
A few Premier League players,
but I did think that Wales set themselves out to have the stronger squad. And we did change the system a bit. Chris Coleman decided to run with a 4 at the back formation this time. A little bit of it was I think it was Tom Lawrence and Ramsey just behind Robson-Kanu.
Yeah, when I think we should have definitely started Ben Woodburn instead.
I think so as well. Even to be fair though, when he did come on, he didn't have much impact on the game.
I don't think Tom Lawrence had a good game. I didn't think he had a good game against Georgia, but he scored a goal that arguably was the keeper's fault. I'm not rating Tom Lawrence at the moment. He had a very poor game against Cardiff when he played for Derby.
And he tried going for screamers again last night as well.
In the last minute, that free kick every day of the week, I think anyone could have delivered that into the box. I don't know why Wayne Hennessy didn't hit it. It was in our half, but it wasn't that far.
I don't see why the formation needs to change when Bale isn't in the team. I really don't. When Vokes played with the 3 up front, it worked perfectly.
Yeah. Because you could have literally had Ben Woodburn come in as a like-for-like substitution
there's
to
no
Bale.
reason why you can't even put Vokes up front, and you could have Kanu playing a lot on the wing alongside him to run at a player. No. But the match when I watched Vokes play, when they did play the 3 up front, I mean, Bale was in the side, but Vokes won. He won at least 80% of his headers.
I really rate Sam Vokes. He scored, double figures in the Premier League last year. He's a good striker. There's a reason why Sean Dyche starts in most games, and he can definitely do a job for Wales, playing with Bale playing off of him. That would be a great partnership.
Especially with the sort of season that Hal Robson-Carnew's had as well this year. He's had quite a poor start to the campaign as well.
Limited minutes.
Yeah. So I think we're all of the consensus that Sam Vokes should have definitely started, and I think that he would have given us something different, something that we would have needed against Ireland.
Yeah, but hindsight is a lot like the year we're all looking forward to restart our World Cup campaign as 2020. So,
which leads me into one of the next subjects. Obviously, Gareth Bale was missing. Does this loss stamp Wales as being a one-man team?
I don't think it does at all. I think the question you should be asking is not whether we're a one-man team, but more so whether we're a one-trick pony in a sense, and that when Bale's in the team or when he's out the team, we completely change the way we play, which I think is negative from our point of view.
No.
I do agree with that, actually. We always shape up with a 5 at the back because it's almost like Bale's good enough because he's like having 2 attackers so he can spare another man in defence. But as we've seen, the teams that are playing 5 at the back, with probably the exception of Chelsea, who do it the best, it's dying off. England are playing 5 at the back, but it's not working for them.
Well, it's not even like our 5 at the back is a flex to 3 at the back attacking. We just usually start with a solid 5 at the back.
Yeah, you're right.
Because we don't necessarily, we have defensive names like Ashley Williams, but we don't necessarily have players around him that are up to the same ability, which I think is why we struggle when we switch to 4 at the back, is just because the defensive ability is not all there quite yet.
Well, the way that we play 5 at the back, we'd have to play Ben Davies as a centre back, and he did a job there in the Euros, but at the moment he's one of the best left backs in terms of form in the Premier League.
Yeah. With Wales, the formation we tend to choose obviously suits the best players which we have in those positions, which makes sense. But I think there is no reason why we shouldn't be able to change the formation and bring new players in, because you see with a lot of international teams, players step up in the competition when the new formation is adopted. Chile were one of the first ones that I recognised to go for 3 at the back. I don't think there's any reason why Wales should have to stick to these players because of the formation they play.
The way Chile did it was a slightly different, because they had Gary Medel as the central centre back. Now he's 5'6", so he's not a centre back. He was always playing slightly in front of them.
Yeah.
But I see your point, and it makes sense.
Just thinking for the next tournaments obviously ahead and whether Coleman stays or not. There's a quote this morning from him saying there's a chance I can stay and a chance I won't. I can't give an answer right now. Based upon the qualifiers alone, would you keep him on? I think it's quite obvious the FA want to. I'm
probably one of the only Wales fans at the moment who genuinely would be happy if he left.
I wouldn't say I'd be happy, but I'd be happy for him if he does go to like a Premier League club or something like that, because I do think he's a quality manager and he's been great for the Wales national team. Like, he's taken us places that we haven't been in, frankly, decades.
I don't disagree. You can't argue with the fact that he is the most successful Wales manager ever. But I just feel like he can't. He doesn't have the tactical prowess, and I feel like I talked about that a lot on this show. But also, he just kind of bottles it. Whenever we don't play Bale, I don't think we need to panic, but I think he does.
I don't think he learnt from the Euros, personally. I think
he didn't.
You can maybe call it a fluke, but going into this tournament, he sort of wasn't really willing to change anything other than when Bale wasn't.
We were still riding that high of Euro 2016, and I do think gradually as results started not coming in, because there was that one period where there was a definite doubt that we wouldn't qualify, but thankfully there were still loads of games left to play.
Yeah.
My thoughts are basically, I think Wales just need a fresh start.
Yeah, I agree
because
with
they
that.
need to start. Well, we've got nothing to lose now. We may as well start bringing in the youthful players to start building the next squad. Because in 4 years' time at the next World Cup, Bale's going to be, 32, 33. So he won't nearly be the player that he has been in the last year or two. So I think it's time for other players to come in the front, which is why I was really disappointed that Ben Woodburn didn't start, because he obviously seems like that one bright spark for our future that could carry Wales in the future.
Wales have got a lot of good young players coming through at the moment, and they will be starters one time. Maybe not the next World Cup, but definitely the one after or something like that. But to be honest, after the success at the Euros, if you want to call it a fluke, sure, I'd probably be inclined to agree. But I just remember us getting the World Cup qualifying group and thinking, like, low key, that we should have walked it. Like,
on paper.
On paper we should have.
Yeah.
And if we played the way we did in the Euros, not necessarily tactics, but just the quality of football we were playing, we should have won that group.
I just don't think Wales have played any sort of entertaining football throughout the whole qualifying campaign.
No, they haven't. They really haven't. And it's disappointing to see, because we were so hyped up on the Euro 2016
That
hysteria,
Russia game, 3-1, amazing football.
And we beat Belgium, who I still think...
Russia game was 3-0. Yeah, 3-0.
But the Belgium game, I thought that at the time they had the best squad in the tournament still. So I thought we were playing the eventual winners, and then we won. And I thought, there's no reason why we can't go all the way. And then something happened and it fell off. And I think the only person to blame is Chris Coleman.
I do think some of the players let him down. I mean, Bale was carrying an injury, but the matches he did feature with Ramsey, I think we had to rely upon the other stars, upcoming ones, especially with Woodburn. I mean, without them, those performances would have been even more dire than they were.
Oh, sure. Without Ben Woodburn, we wouldn't even have been, thinking we could qualify. But it was technically in our hands. All we needed to do was win a game at home against Ireland. Now, if you'd said that's what we needed to do a year ago for us to qualify for the World Cup, I think every Wales fan would have gone, it's easy. We're going to win 3-0. But we didn't, and I don't think we deserve to win.
I think we've been riding our luck since the Euros.
Yeah, for sure.
We had, I wouldn't say it was a quality campaign, but it was very lucky for us, like the way that some games panned out, like the Northern Ireland game. That was such a scrape of a game. It was 1-0, and I think it was an own goal that sent us through, am I correct?
Against Northern Ireland, yeah, it was.
And I think that the games in the lead up to, yesterday have only been like 1-0 wins and stuff like that. Very lucky results on our half. And to be honest, I think this is what we deserve, really.
I think we lacked any real convincing wins.
If we're not going to play well in a World Cup, I don't really want to see Wales in a World Cup.
It's hard to build momentum when you're not beating a team convincingly. And whilst England haven't been beating teams convincingly, they've got the squad depth to rely upon, whereas we haven't.
Wales have a set 11, and if that set 11's slightly disrupted, then I think
why did Andy King start? Who's been calling for Andy King to start? It's absolutely unbelievable. Like, I don't know what warranted him a start. Surely Dave Edwards would have been better in that kind of position, and then he just came off in the second half. When we were up against it, we'll just bring Andy King off. Joe Allen, I know, got injured, which is, disappointing.
That was disappointing, yeah.
I wouldn't say injured, taken off the field.
He got absolutely.
He got a double elbow.
Awful.
I saw some Wales fans this morning on Twitter saying that was their whole game plan. They knew that Joe Allen was the real threat, so they just wanted to take him out of the game early. I doubt that.
As much as I love Joe Allen, I find that quite ridiculous.
If Coleman is to leave, I got some names to throw at you in terms of odds on who's going to be the next Wales manager. Obviously, Ryan Giggs always comes up. Kenny Jackett, Craig Bellamy, Mark Hughes, Tony Pulis, Dean Saunders, and even at 16-1, Harry Redknapp.
Oh, okay. Well, firstly, I think that all those names would be okay, but I think we'll end up getting Paul Trollope or Kit Simons. It's just because Chris Coleman, when he came in, he was under an immense pressure after Gary Speed, and I know they were best mates, and it was a hard situation for him. But I remember a lot of people saying, right, if we take our emotions out of this one, that's not a good appointment at the time, and I don't think it was. But didn't he not get a win for his first 13 games?
Is that Welsh squad not perfectly suited for Tony Pulis, though?
It is, and I would love Tony Pulis as Wales manager.
Tell you who I wouldn't love is Craig Bellamy. He hasn't got the head to be a manager. I don't think.
You don't think?
No.
Yeah.
No, I don't think he'd make a great manager. I think given the circumstances that he was under at United, I think Ryan Giggs sort of hard done by. He did a job, but he wasn't really given much, given that Moyes left him a team that was severely broken. And I would really like Giggs to be the Wales manager, purely because it would be his first proper task that's his own, because he was under the shadow of Van Gaal for 2 years before Mourinho came in. And if he did build Wales back up to be like his own youthful squad and stuff like that, I think that would be a great story as well.
He was interviewed for the Bolton job, I think in the summer, and they said no. So if he's not good enough for Bolton, is he good enough for Wales?
I don't think he's been given enough chances.
I don't think he's been given any chances.
No, he hasn't. He managed United for two months maybe at the end of 2014, but like I said, he was in the shadow of Van Gaal, and he got a lot of stick for that due to Van Gaal's lack of successes at United. But I do think this is the perfect trial for him, even if you just give him a year, see how he gets on or something like that as a transition. But the big names that have been thrown around, like your Tony Pulis's, like your Mark Hughes, like your Harry Redknapp's, they would be good for Wales, but I don't know if they'll necessarily suit our team.
I think not appointing Ryan Giggs reflects more so on the sort of ex-pros who are looking to become managers. I'm not talking about, I mean, there's obviously many around, but the more recent ones, obviously Gary Neville, Alan Shearer, the ones who've only recently stopped playing football. Yeah. I say recently.
Well, we all know how it went for Gary Neville.
Yeah, exactly. So I think they sort of take it with a pinch of salt when you have players like, or former players like Ryan Giggs turning up for a job.
But when you have the players who have histories as like being background staff, like Roy Keane, who was obviously a manager at the likes of Sunderland and such, and when he goes straight from a playing position into either an assistant managerial role, I think that does qualify them to be able to take on a team as the full team manager.
I think that Mark Hughes would be a great appointment. I think he would bring some nice football to Wales, but also be able to, utilise Sam Vokes or, big men or whatever. Tony Pulis, the Wales squad is perfect for him, just perfect. But would either of them leave? They're both in high-paid, kind of cushy jobs in the Premier League. Tony Pulis is in the middle of a project at West Brom. Harry Redknapp might be all right. I think he could be found out, though, because he hasn't got a budget to work with. He's got to work with his pool of players. Maybe that's why he never managed England, because he hasn't got a budget to bankrupt the club with, like he likes to do. But I just feel like we'd end up appointing Ryan Giggs or someone else like Trollope or Kit Simons, and just it'd be so uninspired. And I do think that
more
we need to change.
sentimental.
Yeah, absolutely. Sentimental's the word, because Wales, I don't want to try and big us up and to make us seem better than we are, but we're at least a top 20 nation at this point. Whether we should be or shouldn't be, it's just facts. So we need to be having a better manager than someone like the names we've been talking about. I think Tony Pulis and Mark Hughes would be the two perfect ones. Either or, I would take them in a heartbeat.
So in terms of Coleman, where can you see him going?
I think he'll go to Swansea. I think Paul Clement will get sacked and he'll go to Swansea.
Liam?
I hadn't thought of anything until Bev said that. So,
well, he's a Swansea boy through and through. A
fit.
Swansea fan, went through their academy. He actually left their academy to go to Man City and got homesick and went back to Swansea, and then ended up winning promotion to what at the time was the old Division 3 League 1 now, and with them. So yeah, I think it would be quite romantic for him to go back to Swansea.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Fair points.
Better than Ryan Giggs managing Swansea.
That we've heard so much about in the last year or so.
I'm getting bored of it. It's just like every time they sack a manager, it'd be like, we'll throw Ryan Giggs in just in case. Why isn't he managing Salisbury City or someone like that?
So, this leads us on to the next topic, as a general sort of roundup for the World Cup qualifiers. Who missed out of the big clubs and who are the surprise qualifiers? I'm going to start off with a surprise qualifier in the form of Egypt.
Okay.
Because Mohamed Salah obviously tucked away a nice penalty to send Egypt to the World Cup. I think that's a good story.
First finals for them
some-
since 1990. So
I've never seen limbs and tears
I've
in a
seen
nation like that.
The videos that I've seen from the crowd seem absolutely mental.
It's good, and I think Egypt have got a good team. They've just been a bit unlucky, and Mohamed Salah is a great player, so I'm looking forward to seeing him in the World
But yeah,
Cup.
I do think he is still. There's something still keeping him from achieving like the likes of, I say Sadio Mane as if he's like one of the best players in the league, but I do think Mane is still better than Salah at the moment.
I do too. My team that am I allowed to support another team now? Should we have a quick talk about that?
Depends who it is, Bev. When you tell us who it is, and maybe
it's not
we'll.
going to be England. I'm gonna be rooting for Iceland.
Oh,
As a Cardiff fan, that sort of makes
as a Cardiff
sense.
fan, Aaron Gunnarsson at the World Cup. He might not be a Cardiff player by then because his contract runs out in the summer. No, I just think that they're just a great footballing team to watch. I mean, they're not necessarily an entertaining team, but it's always, I love throwing, those stats that get thrown out. Oh, they're a smaller population than Coventry. If you're a male between the ages of 18 and 40, you've got a 1 in 50 odd thousand, 1 in 2,000 chance, sorry, that you're going to play for the national team. It's like, all right, I'm moving to Iceland, lads. Get me a passport.
they pipped Croatia as well to the guaranteed spot.
They did.
Which is
They did.
definitely
And Turkey.
surprising.
And Turkey.
Croatia have got a really decent team as well. Really decent.
I mean, at the
I
centre of
believe.
midfield, you can't.
Argue with that with Rakitic and Modric and
It's just
that
it's a
Brozovic
dream.
from Inter Milan as well. And then you got the likes of Perisic,
Kovacic.
Mandzukic.
Perisic.
I've already said
Oh,
Perisic.
we'll say it
But yeah,
twice.
Basically, I think that
He's that
the
good.
Croatia team is a really underrated team, but they have not been getting results. I do think the Croatia team do have the potential, because I remember back in like 2007, they were beating like the likes of England and stuff like that. And I do think, well, I think if Croatia can get a run of form together and get some momentum, I do think they can go far in the tournament. Because I've always rated the Croatian side on paper.
Oh yeah, and I love Luka Modric. I think he's one of the best midfielders in the world, and him and Toni Kroos, or I think sometimes by the kind of football fan who just watches a game, doesn't really analyse anything, will forget who they are, but they are two of their best players by far. Sometimes the things they do are unbelievable.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Also, Nigeria.
Nigeria
It
qualifying.
says they've now missed just one tournament in Germany 2006 since they first qualified in 1994. Seems to be sort of a shift in Africa, definitely. Gone are the days where Ivory Coast were qualifying year in, year out. Seems to be teams like Nigeria now.
Ivory Coast, traditionally have had quite good networks for scouting inside the country than to go to Europe, and I think it's the same for Nigeria now. There's a lot of academies being set up with the promise that if you get picked up, you'll end up going to probably like a team in Belgium. I forget which one, but one of them's got like a big network in Africa. Might be Anderlecht.
We'll have to check that.
So
Fact checks.
in terms of big teams that have missed out on the World Cup this year, I'm
Wales.
gonna go ahead and throw a name out there with Netherlands.
Seem
They
to
obviously
be making an occurrence of this.
The biggest footballing nation to never win a World Cup, and at the moment it's dire. It is dire watching the Netherlands play. They've still got so much talent, and so much talent coming through the youth systems all over the world, and Europe really, and they just cannot get a good national team together. It's quite shocking, to be honest.
Sweden as well, obviously
Sweden,
qualifying spot, but I mean they're lacking
But, I mean,
Ibrahimovic now.
linking in with Sweden and Netherlands, you had Dick Advocaat a couple of weeks ago saying how there's no chance that Sweden are going to win 8-0 against Luxembourg, because that's what would really put Netherlands off if that happened. And then, what do you know, Sweden go ahead and beat Luxembourg 8-0.
That was a great game, by the way. I loved watching that. I think
all
he
of
knew
the
something.
goals were absolute screamers as
they
well.
were.
It was
Well,
mad.
the odd one, a couple were tap-ins, but there was good build-up to all of the goals.
There
And,
was a couple of really good goals in that game.
and Berg scored 4 goals, a guy who's been a reject everywhere he went, and now he's playing in the UAE.
So I just reading an article right now that came out on ESPN a day ago. Robin saying that the Netherlands World Cup qualification is not realistic at this point. So that just shows not only like where Netherlands are in terms of group qualification, but like the mental attitude right now. Because I knew that Robin, his attitudes towards the Netherlands and stuff like that have been questionable over the last couple of weeks, but the fact that they're admitting that it's not realistic now is quite dire, really.
Another one for the kind of shock qualification. Maybe not for qualification, but certainly the way they did it, or doing it, is Switzerland. They're playing Portugal tonight as we're recording.
Yeah.
But they've won 9 out of 9. Portugal have won 8 out of 9. The only game they lost was against Switzerland, so they're playing each other tonight.
That'll be an interesting game.
Great game.
Yeah.
But if Switzerland do win, 10 out of 10, you cannot fault them. Like, they've played some great football.
I do rate the Switzerland team as well, because they have got a couple of really good players in it. I'm sure Liam, your favourite Arsenal player, Granit Xhaka.
Great spine to that team.
And then you've obviously got the likes of Ricardo Rodriguez, now of AC Milan.
Shaqiri.
Shaqiri sorted his attitude problems out there. He had an issue with the captaincy, I do recall.
Yeah, he said he was going to go to play for Kosovo.
Yeah, I know.
If he didn't get the captaincy. Did he get the captaincy in the end? I don't know if that worked.
I'm not too sure. But obviously you've got the likes of Benaglio in there as well and stuff like that.
Yeah, they got a solid squad.
They have.
It will make for an interesting match indeed.
It will.
Right. Well, should we get off World Cup qualifiers? Because I'm
let's get off international.
Very sad at the moment. Now let's talk about something that's not divisive whatsoever. The Ballon d'Or nominations.
Okay,
this is going to be a fun discussion.
The 30-man shortlist for the Ballon d'Or 2017 has been announced. Obviously, heavily dominated by La Liga players. Not much change there. There's a couple of shock nominations. But I'll read you out the full list now. From La Liga, you've obviously got Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi, Luis Suarez, Toni Kroos, Luka Modric, Sergio Ramos, Antoine Griezmann, Isco, Karim Benzema, Jan Oblak and Marcelo. From Serie A, you've got Leonardo Bonucci, Paulo Dybala, Edin Dzeko, Gianluigi Buffon and Dries Mertens. From the Bundesliga, there's only 3 nominees, which is Robert Lewandowski, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang and Mats Hummels. From Ligue 1, you've got Neymar, Kylian Mbappe and Radamel Falcao. Oh, and Edison Cavani. Nearly missed that one out then. And then from the Premier League, a surprising 7 nominations. Eden Hazard, obviously, N'Golo Kante, obviously, and then Philippe Coutinho, Sadio Mane, Harry Kane, David De Gea, and Kevin De Bruyne.
You were lacking the obviously behind a few of those players.
Well, I'll start off.
Bias.
I'll start off with the shock picks: Sadio Mane and Coutinho. Why are they on there?
I chose Mane as my shock one, and I originally chose some of the players from the Serie A, but after looking at their stats, I mean, they make Mane's look embarrassing. I think it was
the like of Edin Dzeko, because you see it on paper, not realising the season that Edin Dzeko's had. And
yeah,
just like,
I mean, it was quite close to the actual title race when I went back and looked at it. Napoli were only, I think, 6 points off, and Rome were only about 5. So, and both Edin Dzeko and Dries Mertens were both responsible for that and pushing their teams up the table. But I mean, Mane really, I think when I looked, 13 goals last season and 5 assists.
If you're basing it purely off of like the quality of a player and the fact that Coutinho would warrant his place on that list, I don't understand why the likes of like Alexis Sanchez or Zlatan Ibrahimovic wouldn't get in ahead of like the likes of Mane, because outside of like performances, Liverpool did not do much at all last season.
There's no performances from Mane either which really stick in my head from a player.
No, but he's been good. He's been really good so far this season, but this Ballon d'Or list is purely based off last season, because like Bev told me before we started recording, they've shifted forward the Ballon d'Or ceremony dates now to suit like seasons as opposed to like
a
calendar years,
okay.
Which makes a lot more sense really. So purely based off the season last year, I have no idea why Sadio Mane especially but Philippe Coutinho, the fact that he's got on the Ballon d'Or shortlist over the countless names that I can think of.
I think a lot of that goes down to the fact that it is a 30-man list. I don't really see it necessary that you need 30 people. I think it makes it a lot easier on them to put players like Mane on there as opposed to reducing it down to, say, a 10-man list.
But just think of a player off the top of your head that should be in there above Sadio Mane in terms of like how well they've done. Like I'd say even like Pedro or something like that would get in above Mane, considering that he won the league with Chelsea. I just find it stupid that they've been nominated, and that's not just me being a biased United fan. I just think that Liverpool did not do much last season at all.
I mean, I'm inclined to agree, because to be fair, you're right, they haven't done much. But it does wonders to you getting a £90 million bid rejected from Barcelona, doesn't it? Yeah, especially from, obviously, Coutinho's perspective.
Even then, I don't think Coutinho would have been worth 90 million.
Mane did a lot of stuff for Senegal as well. He played really well for his national team this year. I can't actually think of many Senegal players off the top of my head.
They definitely missed him when he went away for international duty.
Yeah,
definitely.
the African Cup of Nations.
Yeah, I remember
But
that.
I'm going to be a bit controversial because I like stirring up a bit of controversy, I guess. My shock pick is Kylian Mbappe. I know that you two probably won't agree with me.
Broke the record for the youngest player to be on the list.
Yeah,
breaking the record from none other than Michael Owen,
who went on to win it 3 years later in 2001, I believe.
That's a complete sham itself, but I have evidence to support these claims, right? Firstly, he'll win the Golden Boy Award, which is
for sure. He is the best player in the world under the age of 21.
Ousmane Dembele.
No, I still think Mbappe's better.
Okay, but anyway, Mbappe will definitely win the Golden Boy Award. He's gone to PSG now on loan, which is a bit of a sham in itself. But last season he scored 15 goals in 29 games, a good return. But Steve Mounier, who just joined Huddersfield for £11 million, shout out to him, he scored 14. He scored 14 goals. He only one less than Mbappe. And Mbappe, I don't even think, was in the top 10 for goal scorers in La Liga. Sorry, in Ligue 1. And he only played twice and scored once in the Champions League.
I just think that a main influence behind the nominations for the Ballon d'Or is like a shock team either winning the league or performing well. You saw it last year with Leicester. Riyad Mahrez and Jamie Vardy got nominations for the Ballon d'Or, which I thought maybe Riyad Mahrez because he was quite good in that season, but Jamie Vardy, when you look back in a couple of years' time and think that Jamie Vardy was nominated for a Ballon d'Or, or even if you look back now, but
you can owe it to the group of players themselves. Except with Mbappe, it seems to be that Monaco team was fantastic.
Did have a really good team last season, and you've seen that through the figures that were thrown around when bids were made for their players.
Eventually milked, weren't they?
They were, but you think back to transfer deadline day. Well, Arsene Wenger offered 92 million for Thomas Lemar.
I was just going to bring him up. I'm looking up his stats now. But Thomas Lemar had a much better season than Kylian Mbappe did. And if a 29-year-old scored 15 goals or 16 in all competitions, then you couldn't even consider them for player of the season in their respective leagues, never mind the Ballon d'Or. And I know that it's a 30-man shortlist and he's got no chance of actually winning it. But I think that it's just a bit silly.
So do you think Sadio Mane warrants his place more than Kylian Mbappe?
That's a very good question.
I'm here to prod you, mate.
I'm gonna say yes, and I'm not speechless often. I'm gonna say yes because Mane's a better player than Mbappe.
But Mbappe is 18 years old.
I think he must be 19, 20 by now.
No, I still think
he's 18. He is 18 years old.
Yeah, because
he is 18 years old.
That shows me up. But
he's a year younger than you, Bev.
He's 2 years younger than me.
Yeah, but you're old.
No, I do think Mbappe does warrant his place because he is a quality player. I don't necessarily think that stats do fully represent a player's ability, and I do think Mbappe did bring a lot to Monaco's games.
Yeah.
But
do you have his average rating? I think Sadio Mane's was about 7.5, I believe, on average last season.
I'm sure Mbappe's might be more. You got to think in 29 games as well. Clubs play a lot more games than 29 in a season.
Yeah, because he only came good in like the second half of the season. He got his call up to the French national team in March. You know, he wasn't.
I don't think that's a fluke though. He is a really good prospect, and I think he is a massive name as well. So if he was left out of the shortlist, considering he had, we say a loan move to PSG, but the realistic thing is that he will move for like 120 million euros next summer.
Yeah. Was it 120?
I think
it was that. Something to do with that. It was like 120 million pounds basically.
Okay.
But I don't even think Mbappe was actually in Monaco's initial Champions League squad, and it was only added in January.
Well,
because he wasn't in the first team picture. I just think it's so ludicrous giving a young player like Mbappe such high praise. And yeah, he's done well, but there's been younger players, maybe not who've done exactly the same numbers, but have done similar numbers and fallen completely off the earth. You look at
Marcus Rashford.
You look at someone like Mario Balotelli, who won the Golden Boy Award. Now he's at Nice, scoring 4 goals in 4 games, and now he won't do anything for the rest of the season. You heard it here first. There's a tradition of players who have won the Golden Boy Award to not fulfil their true potential.
And do you think Kylian Mbappe is going to be one of those players?
I don't know him personally, so I don't know. I hope he does, because I think he is an exciting player. That game that France started, him and Ousmane Dembele up front at striker.
Scary.
In a 4-4-2. And then they had, Griezmann and Lacazette and Andre Pierre-Gignac and Giroud all on the bench. It was just silly.
We've already talked about that French side and their depth.
It's filthy.
It's madness. So, just another quick question on Kylian Mbappe before we stick around too long.
Please do it.
Do you think that a move to PSG was the best for him?
No.
Where would you think he would have been better off moving to?
Or if not moving at all?
I think he should have stayed where he was for another season.
I agree with you. I think one more season under his belt and he could have definitely gone on.
Considering they held on to Lamar as well, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's right. He'll probably start every game.
He will. He sort of has to, just for the fans, the business, stuff like that. He has to start.
But there's no competition, I would say, in the team at Monaco. He is the best in his position there, or would be. He played on the right, or he played down the middle. He played with Falcao. I just can't see. I mean, they got Angel Di Maria, who still plays on the right. At the moment, their front three is Cavani, Neymar, and Mbappe. But there's definitely, warrants to say, well, hang on, shouldn't Di Maria been starting over him? Because Di Maria is a very good player and had a great season last year.
One more quick question. But I've got another one about Mbappe. Can you see him winning it in 3 years like Michael Owen did?
Not 3 years, no.
Because
in three years,
there's so many better younger talents that could win it in 3 years. I could say probably 5 or 6, maybe, if he keeps going the way he is. But I do think there are players who are around the age of like 22, 23, who are a lot better. And I think
Neymar is one of them.
Neymar will be winning it for probably the next 4 years.
After Ronaldo and Messi both retire, it'll be Neymar.
I'm sure Michael Owen's got a big smile on his face.
I'm going to make the argument now, or the prediction now, that if PSG win the treble and Brazil do well in the World Cup, Neymar will get it next year.
Ooh, next year?
As in a year from now. Because I think that PSG team is set up for glory in France. Like, they can easily win their domestic cups. They can easily win the league. The only question about that team is whether they can do it on a European level. So if they manage to do that and Brazil get to at least the semi-finals in the World Cup, or at least quarter-finals, or they have a decent campaign, I think Neymar would deserve a Ballon d'Or.
I mean, they did, that PSG team did essentially sack Ancelotti, so they're definitely proving it so far on a European scale.
Yeah, and they got Unai Emery, who has got European pedigree, not in the Champions League, in the Europa League, but you can't really say that, they're not worlds apart, are they,
No, anyway, an easier choice now on who you think will actually win it. I've got a poll here that Sky Sports put up earlier.
Can I just mention one last... One quick mention for a shock pick for me is Benzema, Karim Benzema. I have no idea why he's on the list. I think
you should just leave it at that.
Alvaro Morata had a much better season than him given the minutes he was played, and I think that there's at least 5 or 6 players in Real Madrid that performed better than him last year. Right, okay.
I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to argue with that. It's all true. It's all true.
He's left us no room at all to come back. Obviously, you can guess who's number 1 on the list. Don't need to say that, but surprisingly, number 2 on the list. Well, Cristiano Ronaldo, in first with 28,000 votes. Second place, you can tell a lot of Premier League fans voting. 18,000 votes. Harry Kane.
Oh wow!
Oh wow!
Yep. Third, then Messi. So Kane's above Messi.
I'm almost tired of talking about Harry Kane now, and it's only the 3rd episode.
Yeah, well,
we talk about Harry Kane an awful lot.
I think we should have a Harry Kane segment.
We should have a photo of him somewhere on our desk.
Yeah, Kane watch.
Kane watch.
And the intro to it will be Michael Caine, just saying something. But 1 year he'll get injured, so it'll be like, today Harry Kane walked his dog.
When he puts some weight on and is living in a council estate.
Tell us about the rest of the poll.
There's many surprising entries, as you can imagine, just from hearing Kane at second.
Any Arsenal players? Because I know Arsenal fans love a good poll.
Well, if only we could have had someone nominated. You've got Philippe Coutinho at 7.
Oh my.
9th, Sadio Mane.
Oh my lord.
It doesn't reflect well upon the league, does it?
No, this is totally unbiased.
It's just completely overrun by Premier League players, which you can sort of expect. But obviously the big one being Ronaldo at number 1.
Any United players up in there?
David De Gea's 4th.
Okay, I'll take that.
I think probably one of the only justifiable ones.
Oh, we forgot to mention that Manuel Neuer was left out of the shortlist for the Ballon d'Or.
Oh, we didn't mention it, did we?
David De Gea pipped him to be the second goalkeeper, along with
Jan Oblak.
And Jan Oblak, yeah. But David De Gea, Jan Oblak, and Gianluigi Buffon got into the Ballon d'Or nominations ahead of Manuel Neuer.
True. But he can still get into the Team of the Year because he was nominated for that.
Okay.
So, it could...
But wasn't he injured a lot last season, Manuel Neuer?
I don't think so. I think he picked up a knock and he's injured now until after Christmas.
Because I remember Ulreich played quite a lot last season.
I'm sure he did have a major injury.
Anyway, I still think Manuel Neuer is the best goalkeeper in the world, but I do think David De Gea does deserve to be up there because he is quite a close second in terms of the best goalkeeper in the world. Anyway,
that'll do for that.
That's
so yeah,
we'll go on.
You're dropping all the bombs today, aren't you?
I know. And anyway, we'll go on to our predictions to who's going to win the Ballon d'Or. I'll start first. For me, there's only one name and one name only: Cristiano Ronaldo. Is there any player in the world who's had a better season than Cristiano Ronaldo?
No, and I completely agree. The only player, and I'm going to get laughed at for this, the only player who could come close to him is Harry Kane, and Harry Kane will not win a Ballon d'Or.
Right, Bev, can you please stop talking about Harry Kane,
So you think
please?
that poll was correct with you? all
Harry
the places
Kane,
I named.
He scored more goals this season than Messi, and that is all the Ballon d'Or is ever based off.
I don't think a Barcelona player would win it this year. And we will talk about Barcelona later, and I'll give more reason as to why then.
True, but I actually think that Messi is obviously a better player than Harry Kane.
Oh,
I'm not exactly.
Save of the season.
Hot take.
I'm not dropping bombs with that revelation, lads. I obviously think that, and I obviously think that he should win the Ballon d'Or over Harry Kane. But do I think he will?
I thought you were going to say that Messi is obviously a better player than Cristiano Ronaldo then, and I was just like, no.
No, he's not. He's not. But the way I see things going is when Messi and Ronaldo are, basically in wheelchairs when they're not on the pitch and only scoring 20 goals a season, they're still going to be nominated for the Ballon d'Or when Harry Kane's banging in 40 for Real Madrid. If he ever leaves England.
Do you think he will? Oh, we've already talked about that.
Yeah, we don't need to go back into that. You can watch last week's episode to talk about that.
I think if Portugal were to play Wales again, then Ronaldo would definitely end up in a wheelchair.
Oh, yeah.
I think a few players would They'd make sure of that.
So in terms of the Spanish La Liga table, Madrid at the moment are actually in 5th place with 14 points, 7 points behind Barcelona. How do you think Barcelona are going to bounce back from losing Neymar? Because obviously Ousmane Dembele's got quite a substantial injury. Do you think that Barcelona will have a successful season this year?
Yeah, they will.
No reason not to.
I think they'll win the league this year because Madrid are having a bit of
I would say
jet lag almost from the Champions League wins. They've won 2 on the bounce, not because of Zidane's tactical genius and he's the greatest manager ever. It's purely because the squad is the best in the world. But
yeah, I agree with that. That's partly. I'd say Ronaldo's been lucky with the form that the players around him have been in, because he does deserve a Ballon d'Or nomination, but he has had a lot of support from the likes of Isco, from Toni Kroos, from Modric, from Asensio, Gareth Bale, even Benzema, if you want to chuck a name in there. But Morata, yeah. So he has the players around him have definitely elevated him for me to be the top of the shortlist. I think Messi has been quite unfortunate because by Barcelona standards the last season was quite dire. I don't think they've performed nearly as well as they would have hoped to, considering that 2 seasons ago when MSN was starting to become a thing, obviously Messi, Suarez, Neymar, but when that partnership was first forming, everyone was just like, these guys are unstoppable, this team is just going to walk everything. But now I think, well, what Zidane has done to Real Madrid has been really satisfying for me to witness, because I think that Zinedine Zidane having as much success as he has at Madrid in his first managerial job, that's just it's down to the squad.
It speaks for itself.
But I mean, I don't like the Ballon d'Or. I don't like the whole team of the year thing. I think it's a sham.
Well, I mean, Pogba got into it last year.
It's a joke. It's a complete joke. I think that it should be scrapped and replaced with best goalkeeper of the year, best defender of the year, best midfielder of the year, best striker of the year. I forget who it was. It might have been Philip Lahm who said the Ballon d'Or isn't who's the best player of the year. It's who's the best La Liga striker of the year.
Yeah, I think it was something along those lines.
And yeah, I completely agree with him.
Because there's a heavy campaign last year for Buffon to win it.
Yeah, there was.
I would have
and
agreed with some of the arguments made.
I think it was 2014 when Bayern won pretty much everything there is to win, and also Manuel Neuer had a great year with Germany, obviously winning the World Cup. He should have won the Ballon d'Or, but he came third.
Yeah, I remember that as well.
Because I think that year as well, Messi and Ronaldo did nothing pretty much, other than
their 40 goals.
Yeah.
Sort of.
But they didn't win many trophies.
Yeah.
Whereas Bayern did that year.
So I think we're all of the consensus that Cristiano Ronaldo is going to win the Ballon d'Or this year.
Yeah.
Who do you think is going to get in at second? Is it obviously going to be Messi, or would you choose someone else?
It will obviously be Messi. Personally, I would choose somebody else because I don't think Messi had a good season last year. Did Barcelona? What they didn't win the league, did they?
No. Real Madrid won the league.
Yeah, so
And who do you think will get third place then? Because I don't think Luis Suarez will get into third.
My pick would be Suarez. Actually, I think he's the best striker in the world.
Over Lewandowski.
Yeah, and Harry Kane.
Yeah.
And gotta get the nod in there. Well.
Welcome to the Harry Kane podcast.
I was gonna say that Buffon should probably get third, but I think if he didn't get it last season, then he probably won't, considering that he was meant to retire last season and he's only staying on this year to see how well Juventus can do in the Champions League. So,
but they could just sign a replacement.
There'll be no surprises. It'll be Ronaldo first, Messi second, and Suarez third.
Yeah.
I think we're all of the consensus that that's probably a given. Although you could argue for Neymar to come in third. I think Neymar will get ahead of Suarez purely because it's Neymar.
Yeah, he's more marketable than Suarez, isn't he?
Yeah.
Less
I
bitey.
wouldn't even be surprised if Neymar going ahead of Messi purely because, like you said, he's marketable and he is the world record transfer fee.
If Mbappe comes anywhere near those top 3, then I will be fuming.
I think that's a safe bet that he won't get in the top 3.
Good, because I don't know what I'd do if he did. I'd be so angry.
Okay, so moving on from Ballon d'Or talk, Bev, if you want to take this topic, because I struggle to even pronounce his name, but Bayern have appointed a new coach that will take them through to the end of the season. Jupp Heynckes? Heinkes?
Jupp Heynckes.
Jupp Heynckes, right.
Jupp Heynckes.
Jupp Heynckes has been appointed the Bayern coach until the end of the season. Bev, you have a lot of opinions on this.
I do.
Care to share?
I like him as a coach. He's a good coach. Problem is, he's 72. This is his 4th spell in charge of Bayern Munich, and his first was 30 years ago in 1987. So I think that this is a purely temporary thing.
Yeah,
I mean, it's till the end of the season, so obviously it's temporary. But it's just a slow fix until they can get their real target, which is Julian Nagelsmann from Hoffenheim, the 29-year-old sensation.
Yeah.
He's fresh out of retirement as well, isn't he?
Well, he was their director of football, I believe, for a while. The last time he was their manager, which, funnily enough, the last season, he won the treble.
Yes, in 2013.
In 2013. And then he was forced out. They went behind his back and approached Pep Guardiola in December because they knew that his contract was running out at Barcelona. So they appointed him before Jupp Heynckes even decided that he quote-unquote wanted to retire, although there's rumours that he actually asked to extend his contract and was kind of forced to retire and then given the director of football role where, famously, he did nothing because he was told to do nothing.
He's also said that he'd never dreamed that he would come out of retirement to take charge of Bayern Munich, which sort of shows the state that they're in. That they're having to go
they are second in the league, 5 points behind Dortmund at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about the situation probably wasn't as bad as we thought to actually sack.
But you got to think Hoffenheim in 3rd place. That's sort of...
And RB Leipzig. Those 4 now, I think, are going to be the big 4 in Germany.
It would be nice,
which is good because Germany needs a big 3 or 4. Because I'm tired of it being Dortmund and Bayern in the running.
Because Hannover 96 are in 5th, and they are a small club. They have flirted with relegation for years. And then at the bottom, you've got the likes of Werder Bremen, who are actually a good club. Who are
Wolfsburg quite far down as well, who are also a good club. They won
the relegation
league in 2010, didn't they?
They're the last team other than Dortmund and Bayern to win it.
Yeah, they had a good season then.
But no, they had a relegation playoff last year.
Yeah,
they won it obviously because they stayed in the league. But for me, I like watching the Bundesliga. I'm a fan of the league, and I think that the problem with them is that the gap between the top and the bottom is wider than any of the top leagues.
I think they do well to keep
other
on
than
to
maybe
their,
Liga.
They do well to keep hold of their top players, but it's more essentially that their top players go to the best teams within that league. They stay domestic.
For sure, yeah.
Well, that's why Bayern managed to, they broke the Bundesliga transfer record this summer with Tolisso, and he was only 40 million because they have run their business off of buying players from their own league because they're cheaper. Because the TV money in Germany is nothing.
Quick hypothetical regarding Marco Reus. If his injuries weren't as bad, do you think he would have joined some of his former colleagues at Bayern?
No, he is Dortmund through and through. He's even said that in the past that he would never have joined Bayern, ever.
Yeah, he was quite disappointed when Götze left them as well.
And now Götze is back.
Outcry. Yeah, exactly.
Back,
bit awkward.
In inverted commas, back.
Yeah, well, he's not playing that much, is he? Because
he's got a metabolic issue.
I was going to say, he's got some medical issues.
But we talk about Hoffenheim in 3rd place, level on points with Bayern. They've got a decent squad in amongst them as well. And
bear in mind, they lost their 2 best players to Bayern this year, Sebastian Rudi and I think it's Nicolas Süle, defender and a centre mid.
Well, Bayern have bought a player and loaned him to Hoffenheim as well. I think it's
Serge Gnabry.
Serge Gnabry, that's right. Yeah,
formerly of Arsenal.
Big fan of.
What happened with him at Arsenal?
He had a good season last year as well.
Out of all the players we had in that role, of which we have many of them, Iwobi, we had Chamberlain, who all playing sort of this sort of like right attacking mid, maybe wing role.
Sure.
He was by far my favourite player. So when he left, I was
big old Joel Campbell. Shout out.
Oh dear, where's he nowadays?
I'm sure he's still at Sporting.
Yeah,
Because
probably.
he went on loan, I think, 4 years in a row because he couldn't get a work permit. He finally got one, and now you're just not utilising it. It's quite funny.
So, in terms of Bayern's success this year, is this season a write-off, or do you think they can get the stuff back together? And
I think they can win the league. I think the Champions League's a write-off, though. I know it hasn't really kicked off for them yet, but that big loss to, who was it? PSG. That knocked their confidence a little bit.
by no means the presence that they were 3 or 4 years ago. Back when they were toppling Barcelona to become the best team in the world.
I think he'll stabilise them, but even with the attitude he's come in with, saying that he didn't want to come out of retirement to manage them, I can't really see them convincingly winning the league. I think they will obviously contend with Dortmund and maybe the other two, but I don't know, I can't see them winning it.
Well, the league?
Yeah.
No, I'm going to give it
a lot of unrest in that team as well.
I'm going to give it to Dortmund this year as well, I think. Either them or... Well, maybe Bayern, maybe Hoffenheim. I'm just not used to the Bundesliga being this wide open.
Yeah, I know. It's good to see. It's good to see.
It's great to see because Bundesliga football and the clubs in the Bundesliga I rate quite highly, but it's just boring the fact that Bayern win it every year. And we were mentioning like the lower half of the league table. You've got big names like the likes of Stuttgart, Werder Bremen, Wolfsburg, Bayern Leverkusen, Schalke in 9th. All of those teams are below the 8th position, which is quite interesting.
Before we do move off the topic, I've got quite a funny comment from him. I won't try and say his name again.
Who the buying?
Yeah, you trying to say it for me?
You pankers.
You pankers, right? Yeah, he said it's been a difficult time, but my wife and my daughter said I should do it. Return to the Bayern job. My dog also barked twice, so that meant I should do it. that fills me with plenty of hope for them.
That's a great stat. No, I was just thinking about my comment about the Champions League, that it's basically a write-off. I think for them, the best thing would be to finish third in their group and then go and try and win the Europa League. But looking at their group, they've got PSG, but then Anderlecht and Celtic. I don't think they will. The money is probably still in it for them if they went even to the quarterfinals of the Champions League. They probably still win more money than.
Where would you focus your season on if you were Mr. Heinkes? Would you
firstly,
focus on European football or the league?
For me, it would be the league, and you've just got to try and consolidate that squad. There's a lot of new additions. There's probably a lot more egos in that team than normal. We know that Robin Lewandowski isn't really happy there at the moment because of his comments at the end of last season.
Robin, certainly.
Robin isn't happy at all. Ribéry's just had a long-term injury that might end up retiring him, which is really sad.
Big cruciate ligament injury.
Yeah, exactly. But you've still got Kingsley Coman, you've still got Tolisso, you've still got a young squad.
James Rodriguez on a 2-year loan.
Yeah.
Madness.
I do think that they've still got a really strong squad. Probably other than...
They are building youth as well by the signings of like Sula and James Rodriguez, even though he's like 25. But like the signing of Gnabry.
Serge Gnabry.
He's a youthful player as well as Kingsley Coman. The problems that Bayern have is that their two wingers are getting old now.
Well, it's an aging squad.
It's an aging squad in general, but I mean like Thomas Muller's still reasonably young. I don't think he's quite near 30 yet.
He's not 30 yet.
No, he's not 30 yet. But Lewandowski's still coming up to 30 as well, so that's about the peak of a striker's career, so that's not where the concerns are. But back when they initially signed Douglas Costa and the first season that he had at Bayern Munich, I thought, great, this is going to be their replacement for Ribéry or their replacement for Robben, because obviously Ribéry was in a sharp decline around that time. And I think he sort of brought it back a little bit. Robben definitely has brought it back because he was in a slump as well, but Robben had a fantastic season last year. I'm just disappointed that Douglas Costa didn't get off to a great season last year. Because the season before last, as soon as he joined Bayern, I thought he was quality.
Yeah. No, and I do agree. That's why I think that Julian Nagelsmann is the perfect manager, because Hoffenheim, historically have almost been a bit like Southampton, but with a bit more success. They've just pumped money into their youth academy, brought out these players, taken players from other academies who are slightly more prestigious, but maybe they're a bit throwaways. You know, they've been poaching players here and there, and they don't do it in a as shady way as RB Leipzig do. You know, I do rate their system,
and they don't really do it with the certain priority to sell these players on either, which I think is good.
Yeah.
So that rounds up the discussion on the appointment of Jupp Heynckes as Bayern Munich coach. Yes, I got that pronunciation. So our final topic for today, and it's quite a doozy. We don't usually like to talk about politics. I say together, well, on the podcast especially, but together we don't talk much about podcasts. We don't.
It's a dark corner, man.
Politics, yeah, we don't. Politics.
We talk about podcasts a lot.
We talk about podcasts a lot. We don't talk about
mostly
politics a lot. But obviously the Catalonia referendum, big talking point.
I mean, we're not going to sit here and get political. We obviously know that whichever way you look at this kind of situation, what's happening with the violence is awful. Nothing should stand in the way of democracy, but it is significant to football at the moment.
Nothing.
That's why we need to talk about it. You know, we wouldn't be talking about it any other reason.
So obviously we're going to turn a dire situation into a talk about football.
Yeah. So you know, why not? It's kind of interesting to me that what's it called? The Barcelona match against Las Palmas was
taking place under closed doors.
Under closed doors.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure why the La Liga are trying to get involved. They're making this as political as possible. They're saying that they're going to kick all the teams out of La Liga if in the Catalonia region, obviously. I can't see that happening. Because there are leagues like in France, you know, Monaco. They're not technically part of France, but they play in France in the French league. Cardiff, Swansea, Newport, Merthyr, all part of and Wrexham, are all part of the English teams or English tier. So I don't see why that is an issue. But he's just trying to stir up controversy, trying to scare people into doing this.
Well, I saw that there was, maybe not on the political side, but I think it was one family travelled like something like 2,800 miles to go see the match.
They were from New Zealand.
They went to see
Australia.
Neymar as well. They travelled from Australia to see Neymar. So then Neymar obviously signed to PSG, and then the game was called off, which was grim. And they travelled all the way from Australia as well. That was tweeted by Andy Mitten. He's a big Manchester United writer.
Oh, okay. I do remember seeing it.
So the big topic that's going to come out of this is the possibility of Barcelona joining the Premier League. We all know it's not going to happen, but basically we're going to turn this into how well do we think Barcelona would do in the Premier League.
Because that's what we like to do. We like to make light of bad situations.
Well, do you remember, I think it was, I can't remember where he was from, but it was one of the rich, I think it was like someone from Qatar wanted to make a league a few years ago.
Super League,
Super League with all the big teams.
But isn't that just the Champions League?
Well, it's different in now. So
there's
that's
been numerous reform suggestions for the Champions League, calling it a Super League or whatever. But
or the Club World Cup, that's that as well.
Yeah, but I mean, or the final against Real Madrid and Fluminense, all the two big hitters of the world.
I mean, a few years ago, I always remember reading like the Match magazines or the Match of the Day ones. And
big fan of Match magazine.
Of course. Still got up in my attic.
That's how I got into football journalism. Me.
Yeah.
I was never blessed with that, but I definitely had all.
I'll dig some of the old ones out and we can look at some on some of the.
They still do. They still publish Match magazine.
Yeah, they do.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I had all the
buying a few.
I had all the Panini stickers. Thanks, Ross.
Christmas coming up.
Yeah.
But every sort of before the season, they would obviously do, which is better, the Premier League or the La Liga, and they'd obviously look at the best teams. But I think as the years have gone on, undoubtedly, La Liga's got better players. I suppose in terms of the top teams, they are better.
We've already talked about this. La Liga is a better quality league, but I still think the Premier League is the best league to watch in the world.
And I mean, Barcelona over the years have proved they can beat the top Premier League teams. I mean, there has obviously been a big shift with the Premier League in terms of the top teams, so it's been easier for them. But
I think there's another shift coming in terms of Premier Leagues because with the likes of
definitely.
I say United, Chelsea, Man City. other than that, I can't. Maybe Spurs. Maybe Spurs.
Not Spurs.
No Spurs. I
No.
think all those clubs can compete on a European scale at the very least, especially.
I think with Barcelona, it would be more of a case of, I think they would beat the big teams in our league, undoubtedly. I think, ironically, it would come up against the smaller teams, the sort of the Tony Pulis teams.
I was going to say
who
that
would,
exactly.
I'm sure they could tactically maybe there's too much firepower, but I do think it would be an interesting matchup.
Do you think Messi's going to stand a chance against Ryan Shawcross? I don't
I'd
think
pay
so.
good money to watch that. I'd pay good money.
I mean, he could just run through his legs. He's so tall, but you know. But yeah, I mean, I think that someone like Tony Pulis could tactically outdo. I can't even pronounce the Barcelona manager's name.
Oh, but you can say.
I can say Jupinkers. I did German in year 9, me. So don't test me. No, but I do think that. I mean, they didn't beat Man City away, did they? In the Champions League.
No, that was two
Barcelona.
contrasting results,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
No, I think Man City are definitely the club that can compete on that scale.
They
at the
have
moment.
struggled. Barcelona.
It's just having Aguero and Kevin De Bruyne in the same squad. Both of those players could easily walk into either Real Madrid or Barcelona, I think.
Barcelona have struggled against English teams historically. They sometimes get the results. I mean, like they
Not
did.
against French teams.
Not
that PSG game last season. Oof.
But they lost the first leg 4-0.
Yeah, but I mean.
So Barcelona beat Arsenal in the Champions League final. Sorry, Liam. But I mean, they've played and battered Celtic, but then Celtic have also beaten them 2-1 in the game that looked like, when you look at the stats, looked like a FIFA game.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, we all know it. And you know, they lost to Man City, as I've already mentioned. You know, I think a team like Chelsea could also physically just outdo them. The Premier League's a much more physical league, and the defenders in La Liga are much worse.
I was thinking about an argument to make. You've seen how often players individual players struggle transitioning from a Spanish style of football to the English style of football.
Indeed.
Imagine how hard it would be for an entire team to do that.
It'd be interesting to look at those results, though, that you were saying. Barcelona seem to beat these teams in one of the legs and not the other. I don't know whether they're home or away, but that would be definitely interesting.
Away, they do tend to struggle.
Yeah.
And I think that's maybe because the atmosphere gets hostile, because, oh my God, we're going to play Barcelona. You know, maybe because, you know, teams aren't as excited, because, you know, hypothetically they would play Barcelona every year. By the third season, it'd be like, oh, we've got to play Barcelona again. We played them 3 times last year. You know,
lose the face value.
So, in their first season in the Premier League, how well would Barcelona do?
I don't think they'd win.
I think it's a good example is to look at Pep Guardiola with
And would
Man
you think
City.
if Barcelona do somehow end up in the Premier League, how many players would move back to Spain?
Well, I think all the Catalonia-based ones wouldn't.
Well, once they realise how much they get taxed, I think they'd be straight back.
Quite possibly.
Let's put it that way.
Yeah, we wouldn't put up with that.
Spanish tax systems don't mess about.
And also, we don't have suspended
They
sentences
will
for
hammer
first-time
down on you.
offenders. Oh God, we're getting political again. We need to stop that. We need to stop that right now.
I'm just saying, with the scandals involving Neymar, Messi, and Ronaldo, oof.
Yeah,
and Busquets and Piqué and Neymar's dad.
You.
You know, Theresa May will not put up with that.
To answer it though, I probably don't think they'd win the league, but like I was saying, I think it's an interesting comparison to look at the team Guardiola's building with Man City. Is it different?
Would it elevate the Premier League to become the best league in the world?
Oh, with the players they bring over, maybe.
No, I wouldn't think it would elevate it. I think it already is.
Oh.
No, I mean the best in terms of quality now.
Just in the players within the league. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it would. It would.
Yeah.
Which
would wouldn't fare well for the actual Spanish league, because it would become
if they lost Barcelona,
it would become a very Bundesliga situation.
But
with
also, what would happen? What would happen with a team like Getafe? You know, or is it Espanyol? It's one of the two. I always forget this. But there's a team that's just outside Barcelona. I think it is Espanyol actually. I drive past the stadium on the way home, from the airport when we go there. But yeah.
Just on his way home.
Just on my way.
That's a hell of a detour.
I'm dedicated to this podcast, lads. I live in Mallorca, me. I genuinely think that, if it's not just Barcelona, it's not a Barcelona issue, it's a whole region. And I think the guys who own Man City actually bought a team who were just being promoted to the second tier in in Spain, in Catalonia.
Okay.
And they've loaned about 5 players to them, and they've done a proper Vitesse Einem with Chelsea, and I think that's also an issue, because you couldn't move that team into the Premier League, because then or not in the Premier League, into the English tier, because that's not allowed. So
it's an interesting point to make.
Either way, right, I think that is about where we're going to wrap it up, but we are introducing a new segment this week, and hopefully it's going to be reoccurring.
Oh Lord,
have a sound.
I hope you're ready.
I've been looking forward to this ever since Friday.
Alright, so the basic premise is every week one of us, and this week it's me, finds a funny story from football that's obscure. Hopefully the others haven't heard about it.
And no, it's not the Dick Advocat predicting that Sweden won't beat Luxembourg 8-0.
That is funny, but I think this is funnier personally. Right. So, Ibis Sports Club. Does that mean anything to you guys?
Is it any association to Ibis Hotels?
No, I was going to make that joke.
Oh, okay.
But okay.
It's may have stolen his joke.
Yeah, it's not the one in Cowbridge. They made headlines a couple of years ago because they are the worst team in football. Worst professional team in football. Just full stop. They hadn't won a game in something like 10 years. Now that's not relevant to this part of the story. Either way, their fans got a bit angrier with them this year, or last week, because they'd won 3 games on the bounce.
Oh my goodness!
Wow,
that is their joint record in their 79-year history.
That's great.
That is
on the bounce.
So their fans stormed the players and told them to lose their next game because they thought that their reputation was on the line. They drew.
Oh no! It'd be like one of those cases where you have the fans when they hold the arrows pointing at the goal to show them where to score. It'd just be an opposite case for them, pointing away from the goal.
So yeah,
like that.
we hope that ended it on a good note. We're hoping to do that every week, so let us know if that's something that you want to see more of. Thank you very much for listening to this episode of the Enough Post podcast. Follow us on Twitter at IOTPblog. My Twitter's at DanBevJourno.
Mine is at @rdorse_.
And mine is at LiamIsAJourno.
Follow the South Wales Disclosure for more content from us, because we are editors.
First issue coming soon.
First issue is very soon.
And we've got a really good exclusive football story on that as well.
We do.
In Landaf.
We do.
Landaf, yeah. And then we've also got a really good, if any of you music fans, we've got an exclusive interview with Feeder as well coming up, which is really cool.
And if you're anyone listening to this from University of South Wales, we've got an exclusive as well from them. So anyway, we'll end it on that note. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you for listening.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.